All right, the court is calling cause number 2007 CM 5325. This is a hearing on a petition filed by the Attorney General's office, a motion to modify a previous order. Parties are Christopher Lapodaca, who is present before me.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Maserati. And Ms. Linda Camarena is also present before me. All right, both parties are present. This is being conducted or being held remotely through this Zoom application, since we cannot appear in court due to the current pandemic crisis that's going on. My name is Antonio Rodriguez. I am the Associate Judge for the Title 4D Court here in El Paso, Texas. The record is being kept on the computer recording system. I'll ask parties to keep in mind that you are present before me in court, and I would expect all parties to conduct themselves accordingly. Since we're doing this remotely, sometimes the audio portion doesn't pick up as well as it should. So I'll ask parties not to talk over each other, one person talking at one time. And let's see. So at this point, I'm going to ask parties or the attorneys to make an announcement, beginning with the Assistant Attorney General. Ready to proceed, Ms. Morris?
Yes, Brooklyn Morris here for the state of Texas, ready to proceed.
And Mr. Maserati, ready to proceed, sir?
Good morning, Your Honor. George Mansardi on behalf of Mr. Christopher Apodaca, and we are ready to proceed.
All right, let me, Mr. Apodaca and Ms. Morena, would you please raise your right hands so I can swear you in? Do you and each of you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
All right, thank you. You can lower your hands now, all right? Okay, Ms. Your motions, go ahead.
Thanks, Judge. State cause Ms. Camarena. Ms. Camarena, can you state your full name for the record?
My full name is Linda Jo Camarena.
And what are the name and ages of the child or children before the court?
Damian Jacob Apodaca, and he is 16.
Okay, Damien is 16. And who is the father of Damien?
Christopher Apodaca.
Okay. And has Mr. Apodaca been previously ordered to pay child support?
It was a mutual agreement during the divorce.
Okay.
And in that.
Okay. And on that agreement, what was Mr. Apodaca ordered to pay for child support?
$300 a month.
Okay. And has he fallen behind on those payments?
No.
No. Okay. And so you are here to decrease or increase the current child support?
Increase.
Okay. And are you aware of Mr. Apodaca's employment?
Yes.
Okay. Where is he employed?
From what I understand, that he told my son, he is now a firearms instructor, I believe, with immigration.
Okay. Now, are you aware of his earnings in his current employment? His wages?
Not until today.
Okay. But you are aware today of how much he earns a month?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much do you think, or do you know he earns a month?
As of right now, what I learned today is $10,456 a month.
Okay. And you are aware of the OAG's calculation of the guideline amount based on that gross?
Yes.
Okay. And you agree to the calculations based on the gross income that the new child support would rise to $1,292?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You are not in agreement with that amount?
I'm in agreement with that amount.
Okay. And are you aware of Mr. Apodaca's other child in the household, if any?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you aware of the Arizona state taxes that Mr. Apodaco pays?
I was aware today.
Okay. And that number is 297.10. Would that number be accurate to you?
I believe so.
Okay. You also aware of Mr. Apodaco's union dues that he pays?
I was made aware today.
Okay. And that amount would be 85.26?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you also aware of a proposed amount of $800 that was offered to you today?
Correct.
Okay. Are you not in agreement with that proposed amount?
No, ma'am.
Why is that?
I mean, I didn't do any modifications whatsoever. He has helped. I mean, he's paid on time. I'm not gonna disagree with that. He's paid on time every month. He's set up certain things for my son, but when my son really needs something and I'm not able to, handle that, he can't turn to his dad and get things that he may need, especially for extracurriculars. He's told me he's somewhat always put on the back burner. He has contributed. I'm not going to say he hasn't, but there's certain times where he really needs something. And I even reach out to him and we just get pushed to the side. Mainly his son just gets pushed to the side.
Okay, I want to talk about some of the things that you just mentioned. You said extracurricular activities. What type of extracurricular activities that Damien partakes in?
He partakes in football. And right now this season, he's partaking in track. It was advised through his coach that he should do that to improve the way he plays in football. So he does that, and he's also looking into wrestling. So there's a number of things that he would like to do to try to, better his character and also maybe look for something in sorts of scholarships for school.
Okay, so these activities, are these school involved? Or are these outside school involved activities, or both?
He's had some outside, but since he's of an older age, they don't have much city offerings as far as football. So they're mostly in school.
Okay, and so these activities, do they cost money, extra monies? Like explain what types of expenses goes along with these extracurricular activities?
They do get uniforms, but like this season with track, it is a little cold outside, so they might need leggings, they might need, thermal things under their tank tops. They do require replacement spikes, they require running spikes. I'm not sure as of yet if any of those things would change. With football, he needs cleats. This last time we were supposed to get him his own girdle, but he was luckily got one of the last ones left. He needs to provide mouthpieces, gloves, any other things that he might need that is not supported by the school, which is just the uniform and the pads.
Okay, and one more thing. You mentioned you haven't had a modification. Have you ever been to court to modify this order?
No, ma'am.
And how long has it been since the first order?
I believe he was either 2 or 3, so it's been quite some time.
Okay. The state would like the court to take judicial notice of the prior order signed date, December 7th, 2007.
All right, any objection, Mr. Maserati?
No objection at all.
All
Pass
right,
the witness.
okay, the court will take judicial notice of, it's a decree of divorce that was entered in 2007. It's in the court file, does appear to be in proper form, so we'll take judicial notice of the underlying court order. The state
Thanks.
rested, state didn't have any further questions for Ms. Camarena?
No, state pass.
Okay, Mr. Maserati, questions for Ms. Camarena?
Just a few, Your Honor. Ms. Camarena, you know that Mr. Apodaca has lived in Arizona for the past at least 5 years, right?
Yes,
And you understand that Mr. Apodaca has to come into El Paso to exercise his possession of Damien, right?
correct.
And you believe that Mr. Camarena is not able to get any type of deduction for exercising his possession and access to Damien, right?
I don't understand.
Okay, I'll ask it a different way. You believe that Mr. Apodaca should not receive any type of credit for exercising his possession and access to Damien, right?
I never stated that I don't believe he deserves any credit. I mean,
Okay,
that's the only way he has access to the child.
so you understand that Texas law allows the court to take into consideration the cost of travel to exercise possession and access.
Right.
So should Mr. Apodaca be entitled to some type of reduction in his child support obligation because of the travel he has to make to exercise time with Damien?
He's had it for 12 years. He paid $300 a month.
I understand. And you said that that was okay, right?
Because of the job he had. That's the amount we agreed on. He was not making a whole lot. And it even took him, I want to say, maybe a month or two to see him when he left, when we split up. I
So-
mean, there's been some factors that have affected my child.
Okay. So now Mr. Apodaca shouldn't receive any type of credit or discount from his child support because he makes more money now, right?
Like I said, he's been paying $300 a month for 12 years.
Okay.
That he basically buys shoes that are $300. I mean, anybody can do that.
Okay.
So he's been, compared to what, I mean, I'm not saying he's never paid. I always give him credit. He's always been on time.
Right.
But I mean, discounts for traveling, he's been what he's supposed to be paying a month. He hasn't been paying that in 12 years.
Okay. So how many times has Mr. Apodaca come into El Paso and Damien has not gone with him in the past
I
year?
believe it's been in the past year, maybe a couple of times.
And did you give Mr. Apodaca any help with Damien not wanting to go because he didn't want to let Damien go?
I've spoken to my child many times. I have given him credit saying, you can feel how you feel. He's still your father.
Okay.
I've spoken to him many times, and I cannot change the way my child feels. Not only that, I did learn through family members that there have been several times where Mr.
Now it's
Apodaca comes into town and he
Objection,
does
now
not
it's
tell
hearsay.
me.
Okay, all right, ma'am, do not tell me what other people have said, only what you know of your own personal knowledge, okay?
Yes,
The
sir.
system is objecting us to hearsay. Go ahead, Mr. Roddy.
Thank you, Judge. And you understand that Mr. Apodaca works a lot of hours at his job, right?
Roughly.
Oh, what do you think he works?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Pass the witness.
But I
Judge.
mean, common knowledge, law enforcement does work odd hours and they probably are needed a lot. So that's what I go based off of.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Morris, any further questions for Ms. Camarena?
I did want to briefly mention the health insurance. Ms. Camarena, who is providing health insurance at this time?
I'm not sure if he still has his own for him, but I have Medicaid for him.
Okay, so there are health insurance that is being provided, but we probably need to square that away because you're saying that you actually have Medicaid right now, and Mr. Apodaca is paying for private, so that's something we need to square out.
Okay.
And I'll make my recommendations, but pass the witness.
I just have one follow-up to that question. How long has Damien had Medicaid for?
He's had Medicaid since he was a baby.
And you've renewed the Medicaid every year,
Yes.
knowing that Mr. Apodaca provides health insurance.
I don't know how long he's provided health insurance. When he first told me about it, he didn't even tell me he had put him on him. He already had Medicaid when I found out about it. And ever since then, that's the way it's been. Even this last time when I renewed, they didn't pop up. When he finally told me that he had Blue Cross Blue Shield, it did pop up.
Okay.
and they questioned me about it. When I've renewed ever since then, it has never been brought up again.
Okay.
And that's through the state. I mean, if it comes up, they would usually tell me, like after I learned when he had it, but ever since then, it has not been brought up that they recognize that he has insurance.
What year did Mr. Apodaca tell you he was providing Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance?
I actually don't remember.
5 years ago?
About, I would say, because like I've mentioned, he didn't even tell me that he was going to put him on insurance. He just did it.
Okay. Nothing further for this witness, Judge.
Right. Ms. Morris, any other questions?
No, not for this witness state rest.
Steve, have any other evidence or testimony?
State calls Mr. Apodaca. Mr. Apodaca, can you please state your full name for the record
Christopher Ira Apodaca.
and the name of the child you're obligated to pay support for?
Damian Jacob Apodaca.
Okay, and you've heard the testimony so far, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you agree with your union dues amount,
Yes, ma'am.
the 8526, you agree with the Arizona taxes amount of 297.10?
Yes, ma'am. It's pre-calculated, so yes.
Okay, you also agree to your gross, correct?
I agree to the gross, but not what the assumed take home is. Yes.
Now, right, well, that's the gross, not the net. And so your position is, I want to talk about health insurance. How are you providing health insurance right now?
It's through the employer. It's a family plan, and Damien is included in that.
Okay. And at what cost is your medical and dental if you have that?
I do not have that in front of me, ma'am.
Okay. No worries. I have the amount, but does 103 in medical sound familiar? That amount?
Per pay period, possibly, but no, that doesn't sound accurate.
Okay. Okay. Is it your intentions to continue private health insurance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about the proposed amounts. Is it true that you're proposing $800 a month?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Why do you think that $800 a month, as opposed to the $1292 and guideline amount, is in the best interest of Damien?
Well, there's several reasons I would think that's in the best interest. Number one would be when I do go get Damien, I am traveling from out of town. That's all out of pocket costs. I drive myself, I pick him up, drive him back. When he's here, I do take time off of work so we can spend time together. I do not get compensated for those days off other than the paid leave. So there's no overtime, AUO, there's no adjusted time to that. So if that is made up at a later date, I'm doing that again at my own sacrifice. Damien is also at a higher age. His needs, other than materialistic, should have diminished greatly since being a child. He is at working age as well, so he is able to own his own income, which I'm not saying that's needed, but I believe that's something that should be taken into consideration. As well as for this job, I do have to travel round trip nearly 100 miles a day. So that's gas expenses, maintenance for the vehicle. Without that vehicle and this job, I wouldn't be able to pay this amount of child support that's being requested. I also have a younger son that is in daycare. Thankfully, due to the pandemic, his daycare is one of the few in Arizona that is accepting him in person to go to daycare. We wouldn't have the means to have him at home prior to all this happening. So those are reasons why we are requesting to deviate and go with an $800 monthly payment.
Okay, okay, now the prior order was in 2007 and that amount was at 300, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so aside from the 300 that you were ordered to pay, did you ever provide in an excess amount or outside of what was obligated from 2007 to now?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe those things if you can recall anyway?
So when we first moved to Arizona back in 2008, Damien would still come with us. So, I mean, again, the travel expenses, we buy him clothes, we buy him shoes, we take him out, we take care of all his needs. When he got a little older, we thought it would be in his best interest to give him money on his own so that he could use that money to buy things he may want or need. So we bought a card through my wife's bank, I believe, and we would load money on there periodically in amounts anywhere from $50 to $100, $150.
Outside of the court order? I'm
Outside of
sorry.
the court order, yes, ma'am. And we would send extra to the child support, which is why there is currently a surplus on the account. Can't think of any other. I mean, clothes, shoes throughout the years.
That's fine enough. Is there anything else you would like to offer to the court as to why the proposed amount of 800 as opposed to 1292 is in the best interest of Damien?
Aside from what I've already stated, no. I mean, I think I've laid out my reasonings pretty well. I am still, as much as I wanted to help my son out and make sure he has everything he needs, I still have a family here I need to support as well. And a $1,300 payment would greatly affect that on a monthly basis.
Okay, it'll be 1292, but okay, state pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Maserati.
Thank you very much, Judge. Judge, can you enable screen sharing? Because I want to show Mr. Apodaca his pay stubs and proposed child support calculation.
Let me see. I'm not sure I've done this before. Is there a stipulation as to what the pay records show for the pay stub?
I did provide them to Miss Morris at the before we started the hearing in the breakout room. So I would just mark them as R1 and move to admit them into evidence.
No
Any
objections here.
Okay,
None.
R1 be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Morris. Mr. Maserati.
Thank you, Judge. So, Mr. Apodaca, you're very familiar with your pay stubs, right?
Yes, sir.
And on your pay stub, there is a line item called standby AUO AVAIL. And the year to date on that is $19,240. What is that specific line item code?
Specifically in my position, overtime is available, but is not offered on a regular basis. So we're given what is called administratively uncontrollable overtime.
Okay.
That's set aside by the federal government that if there is a need past the 8 hours, they are able to, without additional cause other than needs of the service, to require an employee to stay and work additional hours.
Okay.
That is how they are compensated through that line.
And
Now,
so-
if
hold
I'm
on,
sorry,
let me
go
ask you, I'll ask you another question. And so that administrative uncontrolled overtime is about a quarter of the pay.
yes,
Would you
sir.
agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
So and I know that there's a brand new administration that started a couple weeks ago. Do you know if that administratively uncontrolled overtime will continue or will it decrease from what you've learned at your job?
It can fluctuate. At the moment, we are given the ability to, on a voluntary basis, work those additional hours, which again, we are compensated for. So I do go and work those hours in order to maintain the level of income that we are bringing in.
Okay.
It can be taken away at any time. It is not guaranteed. We can also be told in any given day that we cannot work those hours.
Okay.
So again, it's administratively controlled. So it's outside of the control of the employee, whether that is an option going forward or not.
Understood. The cost of travel to exercise your possession of Damien, approximately how much does it cost you each time you come into El Paso to pick up Damien?
With gas, meals, I have to say anywhere between 100 to 150. That's not taking into account the wear on the vehicle, which, doing that trip back and forth several times a year, it adds up on the miles. So Oil changes are earlier than normal. Tire replacements are earlier than normal. I just had the
Well,
brakes done
okay,
well
well,
above
let's-
when it should have been.
Well, Mr. Apodaca, let's concentrate just on the expenses that you have to actually pay to exercise your possession.
Out
So
of
it's-
pocket, $100 to $150 each time.
And that's the trip to El Paso is 150, and then the trip back to Arizona is 150.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's about $300 each time that you exercise your possession, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have you have another spouse and another child you testified that live in Arizona with you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said that you're providing daycare expenses and educational expenses for your other child, correct?
Yes, sir.
How old is your other child?
He just turned 4.
Okay, so you have about 14 more years of providing for your other child, correct?
Yes, sir.
Without those expenses for daycare and educational costs for your other child, would you be able to work as long and as many hours as you are currently paid?
Yes and no. I would assume I'd be able to work at the same rate I am now, but there is only so much work that we can put in to where there is nothing additional to do. So without claiming illegal hour usage, I mean, there is an eventual cap.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you just some quick questions about your health insurance. You're covering how many people under your health insurance plan?
4 total.
Okay, and based on your pay stub, your health insurance costs $191.22 each pay period for health insurance, correct?
Correct. That sounds about right.
Right. And then $46.28 for the dental insurance, correct?
Correct.
And so when you multiply that out by 26 pay periods, and then you divide it by how many individuals are covered, that comes out to $128.64 for just Damien.
Okay.
Would you agree with my math?
I would assume that's correct. Yes, sir.
And Ms. Camarena brought up an interesting topic. When did you notify her that you had private health insurance so she could take Damien off of Medicaid?
When I began working with the Border Patrol, May 11, 2011.
2011. So for the
Yes.
past 10 years?
Correct.
And you gave Ms. Camarena the information for her to use your health insurance benefits, right?
Yes, sir. And she did use it several occasions during the first few years in Border Patrol.
Okay. And then after that, she decided to go back to having the state of Texas provide Medicaid?
I wasn't aware he was on Medicaid.
Okay. Because you've been providing health insurance for the past 10 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did Ms. Camarena ever indicate to you that your health insurance wasn't working or there was a glitch in the system?
No, there were a few times where she double checked with me to make sure the information was correct. He went to the emergency rooms on a few occasions for injuries for sports and whatnot. But as far as billing's concerned, I never knew there was an issue.
Okay. All right. Nothing further for this witness. Judge, pass the witness.
Ms. Morris, any other questions?
State rests subject to recommendations.
All right.
Your Honor, can I add anything additional?
I'm sorry, what?
Would I be able to add anything additional?
I can ask him one more question, Judge.
Okay, just have your attorney ask the question, sir.
Yes, sir.
What else would you like Judge Antonio Rodriguez to know, Mr. Apodaca? And make it
One thing that I do need to have taken into account as well is in November of 2020, I was certified as a firearms instructor for our facility. Was sent to Georgia for 2 weeks for training to receive that certification. Now that I am the firearms instructor for our facility, I will be running the qualifications on a quarterly basis. So that's approximately 2 to 3 weeks a quarter that I will be running the firearms qualifications. Those days are not subject to the AUO calculation. They are excludable. Therefore, that premium pay is not included in that.
Okay.
So that's something new that I'm going to have to deal with going forward, starting this year. And our qualifications begin in March.
All right. Nothing further for this witness, Judge. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the state has rested. Mr. Maserati, anything else, sir?
Nothing further, Judge. We rest.
Okay, I do have some questions for Mr. Apodaca.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Apodaca, have you received your W-2 already?
Not to this date, no, sir.
Okay. Now, this pay that this extra allocation, I think you call it some kind of, I think you said it was about 19,000.
The AUO, yes, sir.
Okay, now is that income?
That is in the income, yes, sir. It is a separate block because the hours are
It
calculated.
is income, isn't it? It
Yes,
is
sir.
income.
Yes, sir.
That's money you receive.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. When was the last time you spent any time with Damien?
Was able to see him during the Christmas holidays.
Okay. How did y'all work that out?
I advised the mother based on our custody agreement that I would be going to pick him up. Was told on several occasions he wouldn't be going, but he did go.
Okay, let's talk about Christmas. When did you go? Did you come into El Paso?
I believe it was December 18th. I'd have to double check. According to the agreement, it was the Friday, 6 p.m. when he was let out of school.
Mr. Apodaca, I'm asking you when you visited with him. Not according to the agreement. When did you spend time with Damien?
Well, it is according to the agreement, sir, because that's the dates
How
I
many
went to
days?
get him.
Just tell me how many days. I know you want to testify.
Approximately a week and a half.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, a week.
1 week.
Yes, sir.
Did you travel by car or fly or what?
I traveled by car, drove.
Okay. And did you visit with him here or did you take him to Arizona?
I brought him to Arizona.
Where in Arizona do you live? Now, Phoenix?
Oro Valley. It's part of Tucson.
Okay. So you had him for about a week.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before that, when was the last time you visited?
Before that was summer because he refused to come with me the 2 times I went.
What time? But Mr. Apodaca, just give me the dates. Don't give me any narrative.
It would have been June 15th to the beginning of July.
Okay. Same situation. You drove down, picked him up, and took him to Arizona.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So that was in June. And before that, when was the last time you visited with him?
The prior summer.
So you went a whole year seeing him?
Not by choice, but yes.
I understand you want to give me your narrative, but I just want to know specifically how many times you visited with him. So you didn't visit with him for at least a year before?
I had 5 trips to El Paso to visit with him, one of which he came with.
Okay. All right. All right. Mr. Apodaca, have you notified Ms. Camarena? When was the last time you notified her that you had health insurance for Damien?
2011, sir.
That's the last time you notified her that you had health insurance for him?
Yes, sir.
Did you send her an ID card or explanation of benefits? Or
Yes,
what did you do?
she has an ID card for him.
How did you, I'm asking you very specific questions, Mr. Apodaca. When did you notify her or send her those cards and explanation of benefits?
I would have to approximate sometime after October 2011. I notified her verbally and then sent her the card.
Okay. Sent her the cards in 2011.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Doesn't the health insurance renew every year?
It does.
And when was the last renewal that you had?
I believe November of 2020.
Okay. And in November of 2020, when you had insurance for Damien, did you notify Ms. Camarena?
No, it renews every year. There's never been a change.
Did you notify her?
That it was renewing?
Yes. Any new ID cards or anything like that?
No, I don't receive new ID cards yearly.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else. All right, that's all the questions I have for Mr. Pozaca.
Thank you, sir.
Questions for Ms. Camarena. Ms. Camarena, have you been notified by Mr. Apodaca that he had health insurance for Damien?
Not since the first initial, not since then. And he was also aware that he did have Medicaid. I had mentioned it several times.
Okay, I'm asking you when he notified you about health insurance.
After he applied and put him on his policy, and I would roughly say about October 2011 or so.
Okay, so since October 2011, he has not notified you that he has health insurance for Damien?
No, sir.
No ID cards, no explanation of benefits, nothing at all?
The initial one I had a while back.
Man, I'm asking
I
you
did.
since October of 2011.
No, no, sir.
I know you all want to give me a narrative. I'm asking very specific questions.
Yes, sir.
What school does Damien go to?
He goes to Hanks High School.
Do they have sports activity going on in Hanks?
Yes, sir.
They do? They didn't stop because of the pandemic?
They stopped off and on, and when everything was, I guess, up to standards with the CDC, they did allow them to go back.
Is he in track right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About football, did he play football this past summer? I mean, this past
Yes,
fall?
sir.
He
Yes,
did?
sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mhm.
Any questions on the areas that I touched upon with either party, Ms. Morris?
No, I mean, I do for the record regarding the medical, it seems like there was probably just some misunderstanding and communication because it shows
Okay, I'm
that,
asking if you have any questions for either party.
oh, no, not at this
All
time.
right, Mr. Maserati, any?
I have no questions, Judge.
Okay, all right, state's recommendation on this matter.
Okay, the state recommends that the court finds that there has been a material and substantial change in Mr. Apodaca's gross income by 20% or $100 since the prior order was rendered in 2007, and that the new guideline of child support should be at $1,292 a month. That Mr. Apodaca continue to pay private health insurance, specifically medical at the rate of $103.58 and dental at the rate of $25.06, all to begin March 1st.
Well, does the recommendation take into account that he would be ordered to continue with health insurance? Was that factored into the amount?
That's all
That's-
factored in.
Because that's what I'm going to order, that Mr. Apodaca continue health insurance for Damien and to tender proof of that coverage to Ms. Camarena.
Yes, that's the state recommends that, and we could just close out the Medicaid.
Okay, but my question is that your recommendation take into account, I think the testimony has been that it would cost him about $128 for him to provide both health and dental for Damien.
Yes,
It did take
that
it
is,
into account.
yes, that took that his child support is credited based on that amount as well as the other child in the household and the union dues.
And
the
also
tax.
taking into account state income tax and union dues.
Correct, Judge. All of
Okay.
that is factored in.
Okay, I just want to make sure the record is clear on that. All right, Mr. Maserati.
And Judge, my position is the same as Mr. Apodaca's, that the child support should be increased. The recommendation that he proposed was $800. Based on his income and my speaking with Ms. Morris, our calculated amounts based on Mr. Apodaca's pay are really close. They're about 98 cents off. So taking into account the health insurance, dental insurance, union dues, state income taxes, Miss Morris's calculation, is correct. We're asking the court to deviate from the guidelines based on the factors in 154.123 of the Texas Family Code, because Mr. Apodaca does have to have uncontrolled overtime, which accounts for a quarter of his income that he doesn't control. It's not like he works purposely to do those extra hours. He does exercise his possession and access. He is driving back and forth with the child, although the child probably could be old enough to fly on an airplane, Judge, but we are asking the court to deviate from the guidelines.
And deviation is based on what, Mr. Maserati?
It's based on the amount of time and the amount of time and cost for the travel for Mr. Apodaca to exercise his possession and access. I believe that is factor number 14 in 154.123. He also has.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Maserati.
He also has excess childcare expenses that allows him to be gainfully employed in his possession. That would be factor number 6 on 154.123. So those factors that Mr. Apodaca really has no control over, those lead to him, unfortunately, having the income that he does. Judge.
Well, I will point out, though, that the testimony has revealed that Mr. Apodaca only visited with his child twice in this past year. And then he didn't visit with him for an entire year. So how is he supposed to factor in any travel expenses if he didn't visit with the child, incurring expenses for a whole year? I mean, that's what the testimony has revealed.
And that's correct, Judge. The testimony did reveal the amount of times Mr. Apodaca did come to El Paso. He also testified that there were several occasions, about 3 or 4 in the year 2020, where he came to El Paso and the child just didn't want to go. I did discuss with Mr. Apodaca proceeding on a motion to enforce his possession and access before we had this hearing. And so, those are things that he wanted to consider, but, we have to take into account the child. Your job, number one, Judge, is always to take into account the best interest of the child. And by disallowing Mr. Apodaca to even have a small credit for exercising his possession and access, Judge, that's going to be something that you have to determine is not in the best interest of the child. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Morris, you have last word? Anything else?
No, other than Mr. Acapulco, if this order is in effect today, would you allow me to draft it without you having to review it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, likewise, Mrs. Camarena, would you allow me to draft this order today without you having to review it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. I'm reviewing the decree of divorce, specifically finding what the visitation schedule was, and it does have a standard possession order. And at that time, I think it just limited to less than 100 miles. It didn't provide for more than 100 miles. So you might consider modifying the visitation schedule. All right. All right, based on the testimony presented here today, I do find that there has been substantial and material changes since the last order. That order was done back in 2007. It's been more than 3 years. Based on our current income and based on the testimony presented here today, I'm going to modify the child support. I set the child support amount at $1,000 a month in order that Mr. Apodaca will provide the health insurance for the child subject of this lawsuit and tender proof of the coverage. And that means ID cards, information about the benefits that is available in order that Mr. Apodaca provide the health insurance for Damien and tender proof of that coverage to Ms. Camarena within 30 days from today's date. So he is ordered to provide the health insurance. For the record, the court did take into account state income tax, union dues, some elements of travel expenses, and therefore deviating from the recommendation. And considering that, ordering that he provide the health insurance for the child. Start date would be March 1st, since we're on February already. All payments to be made through the registry of the court. Okay. That's my ruling here today. Any questions, Ms. Morris, Mr. Maserati, anything needs to be done as far as any clarification on the court's order?
Not on the court's order, Judge. Actually, there might be one. Would you like me to provide proof as well to Ms. Morris of the private health insurance coverage, or is it just okay for Mr. Apodaca to provide Ms. Camarena?
Ms. Morris, I think he needs to provide it directly to Ms. Camarena.
Yeah, I mean, you can send us a copy. We could upload it in our system, for
Okay.
future reference.
All right,
I will.
that's fine. That way they have indication.
Yes, sir.
Let me see. As far as the submission, I think, Ms. Morris, you can go ahead and present the order to me, unless Mr. Maserati, you want to review the order before.
Yeah, Judge, if I can just take a look at it real quick. I'm sure that Ms. Morris is going to draft it as you specifically ordered. I'd just like to take a look, and then I can just approve it as to form, and then I'll send it to Ms. Morris.
That's fine. I have no problem with that, Mr. Maserati.
Thank you, Judge.
The way they do it, they prepare the order through that DocuSign
Right.
application. They'll send it to you. I'll just set an EJ, an entry of judgment for next week, next Friday.
Yeah, that's fine, Judge. We'll get it. I'll get it
Probably
sooner
by
than that.
then. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And unless there's anything else, that concludes our hearing for today. I do appreciate everybody's participation today. And with that, that concludes the hearing. Parties are excused. Thank you all very much. Be safe
Thank
out
you.
there.
Thank you, Your Honor.